When the name John Watson is mentioned, who do you think of? Maybe a better question to ask is, what do you think of? Or maybe you have absolutely no idea who this guy even is. And if that is the case, then you have come to the right place. Let's go learn about John B. Watson. John Watson was a pioneering psychologist who is responsible for the brilliant idea of behaviorism in psychology. Behaviorism is a conditioning process that instills specific behavior in individuals by a teaching and learning method where you can essentially pick and choose what behaviors you'd like someone to learn by pairing them with a positive or negative stimuli. Watson is most famous for exemplifying his work in the Little Albert experiment, where he conditioned fear into an 11th-month boy, but we will go more in depth on that later. Let's go back and start from where all of this began. John B. Watson was born January 9, 1878, and grew up in South Carolina. While he later described himself as a poor student, he entered Furman University at the age of 16. After graduating 5 years later with a master's degree, he began studying psychology at the University of Chicago, earning his PhD in psychology in 1903. After obtaining his degree, he began teaching psychology at Johns Hopkins University in 1908, where he gave his famous lecture titled Psychology as the Behaviorist Views It, which essentially was where the idea of behaviorism was born. Theoretically, the goal of behaviorism is to predict and control behavior. Watson demonstrated that with classical conditioning, which is the pairing of a positive or negative stimuli with an unrelated stimulus or behavior, works on human beings. He conditioned a previously happy baby who had no fear of rats to fear rats whenever he saw them. In the beginning of the experiment, John Watson put a rat in front of Albert, who did not react. Watson then began making a loud noise while showing Albert the rat. Albert cried in reaction to the noise, and after a period of conditioning, cried in response to the rat even without the loud noise. This became a prime example of classical conditioning. Watson began placing other furry animals in front of Albert to create the same response. The experiment is deemed as unethical because Watson planned on getting around to uncondition the fear in Albert, although the child was removed from the experiment before this could happen. As we all know, this would be highly restricted in today's research. Watson remained at Johns Hopkins University until 1920 and ended up having an affair with Rosalie Rayner, who was his partner in crime in the experiment. Interestingly enough, after leaving his academic position, Watson began working for an advertising agency where he remained until he retired in 1945. He spent his last years living a recluse life on a farm in Connecticut. Here are a few pictures. The first is of Johns Hopkins University, and the next two are pictures from the Little Albert experiment.